There is a growing need for housing in large cities and metropolitan areas. And the way we meet this requirement is when buildings go in for redevelopment or self-development. In this video, I'm going to discuss the differences and the requirements and technicalities that every housing society needs to deal with when they get into either redevelopment or self-development. The question that you're going to ask me, and which I'm hopefully trying to give you some food for thought on, is whether we should go in for redevelopment or self-development. And that is a choice that each and every one of you need to make over the course of this video. I will discuss these options, and you need to hopefully by the end of that take a call, make a decision on whether or not you would like self-development or you would rather go in for redevelopment. Now at the outset, let us first discuss the need for redevelopment or self-development, largely the need for development of properties. While some of us could be quite content in our own existing building structures, some of the buildings may have the need to develop those structures because the structure is dilapidated. Also, there is an increased need for housing, and the existing members may also require additional area. And these options of redevelopment and self-development provide a great opportunity to increase the area of your flat. There are a few prerequisites that you need to consider before you start the entire process. And the first thing you need to do before you even want to consider whether you would move to redevelopment or self-development is ensure that the society's property, ensure that the building properties are free from encumbrance. How do you do that? First of all, there should be a conveyance executed in favor of the society which is stamped and registered. Secondly, the property card should be duly mutated in the name of the cooperative housing society. And thirdly, there should be no encumbrance whatsoever on the property of that building. After you have these three main prerequisites in place, the fourth one that you would want to consider is getting an MOU or consent from the majority members of the society after having convened a general body meeting for that purpose. Now the question is, what is the difference between redevelopment and self-development? In redevelopment, you have a builder coming on board, a proper construction company that will execute everything for you. All you need to do is execute a development agreement between the society, its members, and the builder or the developer, and he will do the needful. He will ensure the project meets completion and see it to the very end. However, in self-development, you are in charge. You are the captain of that ship, which means you as a society need to get through all the problems, all the aspects yourself. And while you do this, you need to make sure that every aspect is well covered, is taken care of. I will run through some of the brief aspects that you need to consider both for redevelopment as well as self-development in this video. But what you need to look at, and this is a question that I'm going to keep posing to you throughout this video, is whether you want the development done or you want to do it yourself. What do you need to do when it comes to redevelopment? We will take redevelopment up first. What are the things we need to consider when we do a redevelopment project? As a society, the first thing you need to do is get the consent of the majority of members. Now the question again is, as far as what is majority, is try and get as many members on board as possible. Try to get the number of dissenting members as low as possible. While a simple majority may be required to carry out the resolution, you need to get as many members on board, because this will ensure that you have minimal obstruction, minimal objections in the proposed project. The next thing you do is find a reliable builder. So you look out for several builders, select on one, and then you start negotiations with him. It is also very important to have legal professionals on board to guide you through the paperwork and to make sure every aspect is well taken care of, well covered in law. I will now go on to discussing what we need to negotiate or the factors that you want to consider in negotiation. Firstly, and that's in almost every contract, when you negotiate, you need to decide or deliberate upon and document the rights and liabilities of the society, of the developer, and of each member. Because this is your fundamental basis to which the contract is going to be taken forward, the set of promises upon which your entire relationship between member, society, and developer will revolve. You then want to consider your alternate accommodation. So the rents or the potential places that the builder would want to put you up in while the project is underway. The next thing you negotiate is the additional area. How much extra area is each member getting? If there is a corpus that comes with the project that the society gets, that's another aspect you would want to negotiate upon. If there is monetary consideration given either to the society or to the individual members, that's another aspect you would want to negotiate. Then you move to the more specifics of the project, the redevelopment. You would then want to consider discussing things like the common facilities, the parking spaces, and various other benefits and features that the project would contain. Apart from that, you would also want to discuss documents, registration, payment of dues, stamp duty, and several other technical aspects. These are aspects that you would want to consider running through competent professionals, including legal professionals, while you deal with these. Now, let me give you a few tips on certain additional conditions that you need to look into. These are things that come in when you want to be 100% certain, when you want to make sure that your project is secured. The first thing you'd want to consider is an indemnity from the builder or a bank guarantee. That puts pressure on them to ensure that the project is completed and gives you financial security should there be some unforeseen event. The next you would want to consider is vacating the premises and handing over the completed premises once the new building is complete. These are terms that you would want to negotiate, you would want to have documented. You would want to include clauses that look into jurisdiction and arbitration. Including a clause for arbitration would obviously provide a lot more flexibility from litigation. Another aspect that you would want to look into is remedy for breach of the contract or the development agreement. In case the builder defaults, in case the developer falls short on his promises, what are the remedies available to you as a society and to your members? And of course, you need to consider that the developer is complying strictly with the provisions of the Real Estate Regulation Act or RERA. We now move on to self-development, and let's see what responsibilities a society needs to have when we deal with self-development. Of course, the obvious, get the consent of as many members as possible. The majority consent is required. Now you need to get a PMC on board after that, or what you call a project management consultant. Appoint a legal consultant. Always have your own professionals apart from what come in with the consultants or the management consultants. Appoint an architect, either through the PMC or on your own, but always have an architect on board. And then appoint a construction contractor. That is the person, that is the company that actually builds your building. When we're looking at our dealings with all of these various professionals and bodies, we need to also ensure that our legal rights and remedies are secured. And therefore, these are a few of the key contracts that you would want to consider when you get into self-development. Firstly, a contract with the PMC, then a contract with the architect, then a contract with the construction contractor, a contract with every other party that you may come along with in the course of this project. If you are using funding for the project, you will have documents and mortgage documents pertaining to the loan for that project. And lastly, sale agreements for the flats that fall in the saleable component. When I started this discussion, I asked you whether you would want to consider redevelopment or self-development. And this is a call that each and every one of you need to take. This is an individual choice that you as a society, along with and after consultation with your members, would need to decide. But the key factor, like we discussed earlier, when you discuss whether, or when you want to decide whether you want to go in for redevelopment or self-development, is, do I want the project done, or do I want to do it myself?